Welcome, my name is Jennifer Pederson. I'm the Executive Director of Mass Water Works Association. Thanks for joining us today for our quarterly call with DEP. We are going to have a special guest at this point. So we've been talking in these calls previously about the Low Income Water Assistance Program. And Ed Kiley from the Department of Housing and Community Development is kind enough to join us to give us an update on that program. So we're going to start with that, and then Ed has a pressing meeting at 2:30, so we'll let him get off, and then we'll start with the questions to DEP. So Ed, go ahead. I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Jennifer. So high level, we have roughly about $18 million that's been appropriated to Massachusetts through the American Rescue Plan and through the Consolidated Appropriation Act 2021. The money is for LIWAP, the Low Household Water Assistance Program. And HHS has provided guidance on the program. There's 3 tiers of households that we have to serve first. First one is those that have lost service, those that are in danger of losing service, and finally usage. And per the guidelines, we need to treat households the same as renters. But by my reading of the law and the way it works in Massachusetts, very few renters actually have a direct water bill. So the majority of the benefit is going to go towards households. And I should say this, the caveat, everything after this is subject to approval by the secretary and undersecretary. It's my recommendations that hopefully we should be approved the next day or two. So there will be, the program is running through our LIHEAP agencies. It's utilizing the same application just for speed of access and the ability to get the program up and running. Our state plan was approved by HHS and probably a little over a month ago in November. So we're working on guidances. There's going to be a vendor agreement, which will be between the water departments and sewer departments with the local LIHEAP agency. So there's 20 LIHEAP agencies. I think many of you probably haven't had interaction with them in the past. Like actually it was 20 years ago where we had a water payment system through the state. They will be reaching out to you directly to try and to coordinate. The vendor agreement is in draft form, and I'll be sharing with Jennifer to get input from her on it. Essentially, it'll say that you agree to make a payment on behalf of the client at whatever benefit is set, and that you agree, if it's a termination, to have them on the service restored with the payment, and if it's to avoid a termination, to keep them on for a certain period of time. To make it easy, and I believe most departments already adhere to the winter moratorium, we're going to piggyback on that. So there will be no actual change in the way you handle things. So if they receive a LIWAP benefit, you can't terminate them during the winter moratorium, and that's essentially it. Right now, the benefit level that I'm proposing to the secretary and undersecretary, it's going to be $300 for those households that are 125% of the federal poverty level and up. Those below that poverty level will have a benefit of $350. If they are in arrearage if they have one bill, combined bill, water and sewer, the whole benefit will go towards that if they're in arrearage or in their date or if they're overdue. If it's a split billing system, it would go to both, if they're both in arrearage, or the full benefit would go only to the account that is in arrearages or it has been terminated. Additionally, it will be, for HHS guidelines, we have to help those with the largest burden. So essentially, we have to figure out a threshold to trigger this. And I'm working on that, and I'll be sharing it with Jennifer once I figure it out. So that's going to be, so if they have I'm hoping to get like a rough average, maybe a regional average, because I know the prices vary by town throughout the state. The trigger will, whatever the trigger is going to be or however we've set it up, it'll be an additional $50. So if they have, say, a higher than average water bill than their neighbor, they'll get an additional $50 to help pay the bill. I don't expect this money to last long. I expect to be gone this season. To put in perspective, for LIHEAP, the Home Heating Assistance Program, we have $200 million each year or this year to make benefits. So the benefits are larger on that side, and it's very short money for what we have on the water and sewer side. There is additionally for renters, there's the ERAP program. If they do have a water bill, they could get additional funds through there. But I think, as you know, there's very few actual renters that get direct bill in Massachusetts. There will be another program being set up now. It's not going to be run through us. I believe it's going to be through Mass Housing. It's going to be the Homeowners Assistance Fund. And that's going to help homeowners that are in trouble with the mortgages. And that will also have a utility component too, including water and sewer, from what I've been told. So if they have a tax lien on their property, the money can be used towards that to abate the tax lien, especially if it's a water-induced tax lien. So that's a very high level picture, and it's a moving part. One thing, we're trying to have this set up and having payments in place by January, end of January at the latest. There will be, from us, we're going to utilize our software through LightHeap. There'll be a separate a vendor portal for the water departments, so we can exchange information and data on eligible clients back and forth through that. It's going to be a web-based system. They'll have more details on that. We're programming that as we speak, and we're hoping to start testing next week on that. So that's my high level spiel.
Great, thank you. And Mass Water Works is putting together a roundtable on this as Ed finalizes the vendor agreement and you know, how it's going to work between the agencies and the water systems. So I just put that in chat. Anyone who's interested in more specifically learning about how this program is going to roll out, you're welcome to attend the virtual roundtable we're going to hold on Wednesday, January 12th. Any questions for Ed before we let him get off? Feel free to put them in chat, or if you can't chat, you can unmute *6 if you're on the phone. All right, I'm not seeing any questions. So Ed, thank you very much for the update, and thanks for participating in the roundtable on January 12th. And now I will turn it over to the commissioner.
Okay, thanks, Jen, and thanks, Ed. And you know, we're appreciative of having this session again. As you know, these calls are now quarterly, and we're looking forward to today's discussion and keeping this as a regular meeting. A reminder that this session is being recorded. We do make a copy of the recording available and post it on our MassDEP website after the meeting's taken place as a resource. For DEP today, we have Kathy Baskin, our Assistant Commissioner for Water, Yvette DePisa, the head of our drinking water program, Damon Guterman, Mike Maynard, and we have, as you can see, if you're on the screens, you can see we have folks from each of our regional offices to make sure that we're all hearing about and talking about the same things. We are joined by EPA today. I think Jane Downing was not able to join us, but I believe we have Kevin Riley and Andrea Travaglia on the line. I don't know if there are any updates they want to provide. I think Jane might have given Jen Pederson some updates, but I'll open the floor to either Kevin or Andrea if there's anything you want to highlight at the start of this meeting. And thank you for joining us.
Hi, everyone. Andrea here from Region 1. I just had a couple things I can mention quickly. I think everyone's aware there's an announcement expected this week on the 16th for the lead and copper rule, that revised rule that's coming out. So that's exciting. A few other things. There's a final deadline for WEA that's coming up soon, end of December 2021. That's for the smallest systems out there. So the ones that serve less than 49,999 down to 3,300. So those ERP certifications are due. If folks have any questions about that, definitely reach out. I know headquarters is offering office hours help for any systems that might have specific questions or issues. So get in touch if you need that information, definitely. What else? Oh, there was another alert, a cybersecurity alert we wanted to mention. on, I'm not a cybersecurity expert, so I'm just going to let you know what this says, but it's the Apache Log4j. So we just wanted to remind folks to take a look at the alert and the actions that are recommended. And that's available on the Water ISAC website. So I can include that in the chat, that website, so folks can get that information if they would like. What else? I think that's all we had in terms, there's not much coming up before the end of the year with respect to trainings and workshops, but once those start happening again in 2022, we'll include that information. And that was all I had, unless there are any questions.
Okay, well, thank you, Andrea, for those updates. Any questions right now for EPA?
I saw Damon put the cybersecurity information in the chat. Thanks, Damon.
Right. And, I had one I guess it's probably still pending, but on the 16th, is it the new rule, or is it a step in decision-making about the new lead and copper rule that we'll be hearing about?
I'm gonna let Kevin answer that one if he's on.
It's the new rule,
It's the new rule. Okay, great.
which is
All right.
basically the old proposal.
Got it. Got it. Okay, well, that's going to be a big development, and I'm sure much more to follow on that. So thank you for the heads up on that. All right. And thank you for joining us again. We also have Mike Maynard, who's able to talk to us about the licensing board. Mike, if you wouldn't mind unmuting yourself and any updates you'd like to provide.
Yes, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Well, thanks for your time, everybody. Just a couple of housekeeping notes before I jump into a quick analysis of the operator certification program. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the passing of a central regional office individual, Kelly Momberger, who was always a huge component of the drinking water program, also a big proponent of training operators and operator certification. We're going to miss her dearly. We already do. The next thing is any operators, or if you have any interaction with operators, please, it's a certification year. Go online and renew your license. If you did not receive a PIN from Division of Professional Licensing, DPL is now DOL. So they have changed their name. I think they're still the same organization, but they are now DOL. So if you have not received your PIN, send an email to drinkingwaterboard@mass.gov to get your PIN and register and renew your license as soon as possible. The next issue is we are moving from a customized exam to a standardized exam. Mass Water Works has notified their operators. New England Water Works has notified their operators. You should not notice any changes to the exam, but if you do, just notify, or if there becomes an issue for anyone taking an exam, just notify the associations or send an email to drinkingwaterboard@mass.gov. In online trainings will continue. We will continue to review and approve online trainings. So that's been a big change this year since the pandemic. So thanks to everyone, all the associations, for working with us to try to iron out some of the difficulties with that. Jen, can you pull up the slide, please?
Are people seeing the slides? I believe I have them shared.
No, we have your Google homepage.
All right. Well, back to the slides. There we
Looks
go.
like you're doing some Christmas shopping on the side there, Jen.
I was trying to find the new executive director's name, Mike. You might want to mention that too.
Oh, yes, the new executive director for DPL. So this is the 16th personnel change since I've taken over the board with DPL. Her name is Mary McCarthy Collins. She is going to be taking over. We're hoping it's going to improve some of the things at DPL. she is going to be the new executive director. She already is the new executive director. She will be handling the drinking water board and sheet metal. Plumbing has their own executive director, who is Karen Brand. So we're looking forward to Mary's, been with DPL for a while. Seems very competent. We worked with her for the last 2 years, a year and a half, and we're looking forward to, under her leadership, to, iron out some of the things that we have coming up. Okay, so these are some statistics from DOL and the data set that we requested from them. So we're looking at license. So we broke it down into operators and licenses. And these slides will be available to the associations, and we will. So if you can look at it and have any questions, feel free to let me know. So the number of licensed operators are 3,523, and the number of licenses are 6,442. We're seeing that there are a number of newly licensed operators in 20 and 21. So there are operators that are entering the field. We have some operators coming into the field, which is a positive thing. And that's to work with the associations and, just saying we need operators and things like that. So people are coming into the field. The number that we're trying to get is how many are actually leaving the field or inactive. And that's a moving target that we're trying to work with. Next slide, please, Jen. Thank you. Okay, let's see, I'm trying to move that. Okay, so these are just simply the number of licenses that were coming through. You can see there was a dip in 2020. Right now we're at 673, and that will go up because that was not updated. That'll be updated through 12/31. So we are processing more licenses than usual. Next slide. What we tried to do is break it down into distribution and treatment. And what you can see, this goes DA is any letter is an OIT. So DA is D1 OIT, the D1 license, the DB is D2 OIT. So as you can see, there are a lot of licenses that are D1 and D2. And hopefully that they're going to continue in the field and gain experience and education and move towards the higher level licenses. But it is encouraging from my perspective to see that there are a lot of new light D1s and 2s in the field. Next slide. We'll go over to, I think this one is treatment. So we can also see in the treatment category, 605, 451, 393, and 407. So we are seeing a lot of operators who have taken the exam, passed the exam, and have some of the experience to get those T1 and T2 licenses. Next slide, please. Okay, so this was a slide that was requested from the association. So what we're trying to look at is how many of the who's going to retire or could possibly retire. So we just kind of did an age stratification here. As you can see, it looks like a Christmas tree there, except climbing up one side to 905. So the bulk of the operators, for the largest category, are between 50 and 59. We did tease this out, so we went from 50 to 54. And then 55 to 59. Oh, that's that slide. So we wanted to see actually who, at the 55 to 59, who could possibly be closer to retirement. Again, we certainly see that there are a lot of operators in the greater than 50 category. And we're still trying to tease out the data to see how many of the, say, 60 and above licenses are active. Based on the data set we get from DPL, that's difficult to do. We're looking at some different angles, but we do see a lot of operators 60 and greater. So that's 60 and greater will be 400, 600, 700, almost 800 operators are 60 or older. A lot of them are still active, but there are a lot that are not active. Next slide, please. And this is something you can maybe spend some time with your family over the holidays, you know, during the reading of Charles Dickens' Christmas Carol. You can kind of bring in some of these slides to really festive colors and things. No, I'm just kidding. So what we were trying to do on this is look at where were we in 2019 and where are we now? The data still has to be teased out and verified, but it looks like we are, the gray would be 1121. So almost most of the time we have more operators in those, more licenses now than we did back in 19. And we're still teasing that data out. Okay, this is just another cut of that data, licenses. And that's about it. So that was our second or third attempt to try to get some data to the associations who, you know, are trying to use the data to plan and develop their programs. If you have any questions or any other input on the data that you saw, you can certainly send an email to the associations. Jen, you have that data set?
I do have that PowerPoint and I can share it with anyone who's interested if you put your email in chat.
Great. Thank you very much and have a great holiday. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Mike. Any questions for Mike on the board or anything that he covered in his presentation? Okay, not hearing anything. Once again, appreciate it, Mike. And we heard earlier when we got the overview from EPA about the lead and copper rule, and I know there's going to be a lot of thinking about things we will need to do under the new rule. I might ask Yvette DePisa to give us an update on the lead pipe inventory. If I could ask you to unmute yourself, Yvette.
Hey, thank you, Commissioner, and hello, everyone. Before I talk about lead, I just want to mention that the information that Michael Maynard just presented will be in our bi-weekly In the Main newsletter for our public water suppliers on Friday. So you will get it as well. On the lead and the LCRR, it was good for Kevin to say it's going to look very similar to what the draft was before. So with that in mind, the drinking water program in MassDEP, we have been working to deal with what we know would be the minimum work that everyone would need to do under the LCRR. And that is to have an inventory of your lead service lines. So we have been working on the minimum information that should be a part of a lead service line inventory and working to identify a grant program with the Clean Water Trust so that we can help water suppliers generate this minimum information and have it in a format that's electronic, accessible to the water system, to MassDEP, that is in a format that can be used for water suppliers to share with the consumers. So we have just started that process with the Clean Water Trust, and the goal is to have this program up and running very quickly. We have discarded, lots of ideas about what it would look like, and we have spent time looking at all of the national information from MWWA, from ASWA, other states, and we have decided that we needed to keep it as simple as possible and as fully electronic to make sure that we're not creating more paper, and that would allow the state to quickly respond to water system. So that's one thing that we are doing right away. The second piece is to identify a tool that would allow consumers to help in the identification of lead service lines. And EPA has already created an information tool to help consumers do that. And we would move that into a web-based tool that all water suppliers would have access to, that could then inform their inventory as an initial step if that's what they would need in order to fully identify their inventory. So those are just two pieces that we're working on. We are committed to, as soon as we get this federal rule, to read it from top to bottom and to get information out to you as quickly as we can so that we are all working from the same information. That's my update for now on the lead and copper rule and what we're hoping to do very quickly. Thank you and happy holidays to everyone.
Okay, thanks for that. Thanks for that overview. And so now I'll move in a little bit. You know, Yvette mentioned, you know, not the least of which thinking about all the programs, also, you know, funding and resources. And so I'll transition a little bit to that because it's been a busy couple of months in terms of funding. As many of you probably saw, if not everybody, the governor yesterday signed what has been called the ARPA bill. This is the bill administering the first wave of the federal ARPA money in state government. The legislature passed it last week and the governor signed it Monday. And the bill is particularly interesting, you know, for us because there's $100 million in it for water and sewer infrastructure. Of those water and sewer infrastructure projects, about 15 million is earmarked to individual projects. The balance will go to the Mass Clean Water Trust for principal and interest reductions on SRF projects. The emphasis of the funding is both, it's a couple of areas, not the least, including CSOs for wastewater projects, PFAS, and lead. So there's, you know, now that the bill has been signed, I know the trust is working on administering its portion now that it has certainty as to what was allocated. In addition, we're taking a look at the earmark accounts to figure out how we work with the communities that have been identified in that, and we're going to have more to say on that in the near future. In addition to that legislation, at the federal level, in November, the Infrastructure Investments and Jobs Act was also signed into law by the president, and it promises additional federal support for SRF programs over the next several years. I think Massachusetts can expect upwards of $200 million a year for 5 fiscal years to support SRF project subsidies. I think, you know, they, you know, we're going to be looking carefully on how the federal government will be administering that fund. I know EPA has been in contact with the states to indicate that this funding is coming. We're awaiting additional federal guidance on how that money will be distributed and what requirements are associated with that. So we expect to be back in touch with you on that as well. So both the ARPA funding and this IIJA funding will be things that I suspect we'll talk about in this forum and in other forums to make sure that we're being, you know, very timely in terms of the guidance so that we can make the maximum use of this funding. So with that, I'm just looking here to see if we, got any questions. I know we got one about supply chain issues, and this is one it's not only a question, but I think we always have used these sessions to stay in touch and see if we're hearing things. And so I'd ask, we're mindful of the fact, supply chains, as we now know, it started in the drinking water sector when you were talking about various chemicals and things related to various processes. Supply chain is a word that's in the news a lot for a whole bunch of reasons right now, but I might just see if there are particular issues that any of you as operators of systems might be dealing with right now.
Commissioner, I will just say that I think in addition to sort of the availability, I'm hearing a lot about price increases, especially on the chemical side. And so that's a concern of some. And I throw that out there. The other issue is it's great to be getting all of this federal and state money for water and sewer infrastructure, but I heard that someone who tried to get ductile iron pipe, it's out 12 to 18 months almost for the larger sizes. So, I mean, we could have some issues trying to expend that money in the timeframes in which it needs to be expended. So I just throw that out there as a, something to watch going forward. Certainly, like I said, it's great to have the money. We just need to make sure that it can be spent in that timeframe.
Mm-hmm. Great. Yeah. And it is, you're right. We want to spend the money, but, we also recognize that, these are big projects and there are timelines. So yeah, it's clearly going to be an area where we're going to need to stay in touch and make sure we know what's going on. A couple of other questions, we got was, there's one here about, it's not specifically a funding or COVID related issue, but we got a question about, is DEP exploring any association between nitrate levels and PFAS concentration in water supply wells? And, that's one of the questions that came in advance. And I think, and if the drinking water program wants to supplement this, certainly they can, but we have not done a formal analysis looking for correlations between PFAS and nitrogen contamination. However, we have had, I guess, since 2026 public water supplies with detections of nitrate above its MCL. So it sounds like an area that we're going to keep looking at and talking about, and interested in where the data takes us as we go forward. The other PFAS related question we got was, since we were last together, you may have seen that the federal government has talked about PFAS in a number of ways. The EPA has indicated in the next 2 years they will set an MCL for PFOA and PFAS. The 2 of the 6 compounds we're already regulating at the state level here, as well as taking other actions. One of the things that EPA did about a month ago, maybe a little longer, was issue reference doses, which is the first step of developing a health advisory and ultimately an MCL. And I know there's been a lot of attention to that, and people have asked, well, what does this mean for public water systems? I think at this point it's early. EPA is still a ways off from translating that reference dose into a health advisory into a specific MCL, and there are lots of steps in that process. Not surprisingly, the numbers that EPA is talking about are low, as we've talked about before. The numbers have been going down in terms of what people do when they're looking at regulations of this. But at this point, I think our best guidance is we're implementing our programs here. I don't know that we can draw any formal conclusions about where EPA is today versus what ultimately an MCL will be. But our Office of Research and Standards is certainly spending a lot of time looking at the information they're looking at. I think the EPA Science Advisory Board is looking at that draft reference dose and might have more to say. It's possible that they'll have their own areas of inquiry on that. So it's something that we're gonna spend a lot of time tracking, and we'll make sure that we're talking about with the drinking water community as things move forward. So with that, I think if we want to, oh, and Damon says that, you know, apparently there's an upcoming Science Advisory Board meeting. He put that in the chat. So I don't know if we'd like to open the floor for questions either through the chat or people unmuting themselves, but certainly able to do that now.
Sure. I think I had one additional water system had asked me about any funding programs that would assist with proactive upgrades to septic systems in Zone 2.
Yes.
Is DEP aware of any proactive funding? This is a community that's not over the PFAS MCL, but certainly is concerned about septic systems in their Zone 2, maybe contributing to that down the line. So I personally was not aware of any funding programs, but I didn't know if you were.
Kathy Baskin, anything you want to answer on that or provide information on?
Yes, we do have a couple of funding programs. One through the state revolving fund that is called the Community Septic Management Program, and they provide low-cost loans to the communities that are affected to devise local inspection, septic management plans, and they can provide loans to eligible homeowners. So it's sort of a more community-driven program. And then the other one is a bank loan program called the Homeowner Septic Loan Program. And that's funded through the Mass Housing Finance Agency. So those would be the two places for someone to go seek financial help on septic systems.
Thanks,
Okay.
Kathy.
Great.
As the commissioner said, we're open for questions now. So if you want to put them in chat, please feel free to do so. If you can't chat and you want to unmute or raise your hand, we can call on you. I'm also going to put in a link. We know that people are scrambling for TCHs right now, and New England Water Works has a meeting on Thursday that is 2 TCHs. I also put in a link to a DEP training that they're doing with RCAP on cybersecurity. That is a repeat of a session that went on earlier this year. So if you already did that training, you can't use it again, but certainly it is there for people who may need one more TCH. With that, we'll open it up for any questions.
And just to mention also that the CPR certification is an allowable training as well. So if operators are looking for to update their CPR certification, they can do that.
Thanks, Mike. I guess while I have the floor, I will just say that it's always wise not to wait until last minute to get your TCHs. And so we certainly hope that people think about that and plan accordingly. We had a training this morning, and wouldn't you know, there was a water main break and the guy had to leave. And so now he's missing his 3 TCHs he was counting on. So please do remember that, you know, emergencies happen. You never want to be waiting until mid-December to get your training contact hours. And certainly we understand it's been a pandemic and that's impacted some people's ability to get the training, but do keep that in mind for next renewal cycle. Any questions for the commissioner? All right, not seeing any, so I think we are done with the call today. We are, as the commissioner said, on a quarterly basis. The next call would be Tuesday, March 8th. I will say that the commissioner has graciously agreed to attend the Mass Water Works January membership meeting on January 27th at Devon's, as has the Clean Water Trust. So it's a good opportunity to hear any more updates about the funding pieces or state programs January 27th. That information is on our website. So thanks to the commissioner for agreeing to be our keynote there and for the trust to talk about the program. Since we know a lot of the funding is going to go through the trust, it's important to make sure you understand what their programs are. All right, with that, we hope that you all have a healthy and happy holiday season. And again, thanks to the DEP staff for participating in these quarterly calls. I think it's very valuable and appreciate your willingness to continue doing so. So that I will end the call and thank you, everyone.
Thank you and
Thank you.
all the best. Thank you.